a famous photographer of F1. So, I want to start this interview with asking you what was the first race that you watched of F1?
Firstly, I want to thank you for having me on your YouTube channel. The first race, well, I went to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix in 2016 and I paid for a ticket and I went down with Red Bull and I was in the garage and I had the headphones on. I was listening to Daniel Ricciardo talk to his engineer and I loved it. So I decided then that I would apply for accreditation. And I contacted the F1 people through the FIA and I said what I could do for the sport and they accredited me. So my first race was 2017 Melbourne, but my first photographing of Formula One was at the pre-season testing in Barcelona a few weeks before. And since then, I've done 147 races.
And I think 147 races is the exact race starts of Charles Leclerc. That's a little coincidence.
I did not know that.
Okay, so instead, you said me the race that you went live to see. But what was the first race that you watched at home?
What, as a spectator?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think I would have gone to a race in Adelaide when was it? Would have been in the 80s. I can't remember, but I do remember one day in Adelaide, very wet, sitting in the grandstand. Senna was racing, but I can't tell you what year.
Okay, so when you arrive to an F1 track, can you choose the corners to take pictures or F1 decided?
No, I decide. We're allowed to go pretty much anywhere. There are some areas of the tracks which are red zones where you can't stand. You can mostly walk through them, but you can't stand and shoot. And that's because they're too dangerous. But otherwise, we can pretty much go to any corner. And we are allowed to go to pit lane for one of the 3 practice sessions. Although if it's a sprint race, we can only go in the first practice session. So we put our names down on a list and hopefully we get to go into the pits for one of those sessions.
What was your favorite circuit and corner to take a picture?
My favorite circuit? Look, Monaco. I love Monaco because it is such a lovely view, the boats. It's a short circuit, so it's easy to walk from the paddock up to the far end. It's just a beautiful place. It's almost always sunny. And in the favorite corner, look, I love the shot of the cars coming out of the tunnel. It's just black in the tunnel, and then they come into bright sunshine. So you get the car beautifully lit, and behind is dark. And that's very rare that we get a shot like that. So that is probably my favorite spot to shoot. And the other spot, which is no longer available to us, is at the bottom of Eau Rouge in Spa in Belgium, where they come up the hill. Now, in the past, we've been able to stand at that corner and sometimes 3 meters, 4 meters from the cars. They're going crazy speeds, and it's the most exhilarating thing. It's your body feels excited. It's dangerous, and you know it's dangerous because you're standing there and hear them come over that curb. But they changed the track a couple of years ago. No longer is that a shot.
So after hearing what you said, I think even the Monaco after the tunnel shot is very good. But I saw some clips of the turn 10, the corner after the tunnel, and like there is not a wall protecting the photograph and the marshals. So that I found very cool.
Well, you've done your homework, and I like that. Yes, that is an amazing place to sit because we sit on the ground. The car is maybe 5 meters from us, but it's never going to hit us. To hit us, it would have to almost stop and do a U-turn and come back, and we would be in danger. But once I was in Japan, and I was shooting the chicane near the end of the circuit. And was it Nicholas Lativi or Logan Sargent, one or the other, took the wrong road. And he came around and he just ended up facing us, and he was a couple of meters away. And sometimes we walk across there, we're allowed to walk across there. And if I had been walking across there, he would have driven up and nudged my knees, so that we get some amazing opportunities shooting Formula One.
It was Nicolas Latifi. I just saw it like after, because when I want to see practice in Japan, in Italy, it's like 3 a.m. So I was sleeping and I was very sad to not see what happened.
Right, you are a very switched on young man.
So what is the difficult part of your job?
Doing all the photos that I want to do every race. There's only so much time. The cars are on track for 2 hours on Friday, 2 hours on Saturday, and maybe an hour and a half on Sunday. So if I want to do a lot of shots, I have to be very quick. Somebody called me on the Let me see if they ring again, because it might drop out, and then I'll answer your question.
Can you move a little bit on the left? Because the
Yeah,
face is a little
like
bit
that?
cut. Yes, like this.
Is that better?
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay. What was your question? Let's do that question again.
So, what is the difficult part of your job?
Doing all the photos I want to do, because the cars are only on track for 2 hours on Friday, 2 hours Saturday, and maybe an hour and a half on Sunday. And that's a short time. And with a big track, we've got to get to so many different places. Sometimes during an event, I'll miss out on a lot of photos that I wanted to do. But hopefully the ones that I get are good enough.
Okay, I saw on your social media that you developed friendship with with drivers. Who is your driver that impressed most as a person?
Look, I speak to a lot of them, and look, they're all lovely guys. Some drivers I have better relationships because I have longer to talk, or perhaps I've been out to dinner with them, like a Jack Doohan. I spent some time with Franco Colapinto. I think Franco this year has been very refreshing. He's fun. He's excited because it's brand new and he wants to drive, but he hasn't got a full-time drive. So he's working a lot harder than someone like perhaps a Lewis, who's been in the sport for a long time. He doesn't need to do anything special with the photographers, but he is a very important part of Formula One. He is the big show. So look, I love photographing Lando, Doohan, Colapinto, Carlos, Charles, Oscar. Look, they're all good. Some just really good.
And how it's important to personal how is personal relationship for your job access to exclusive content?
It is vital, because if a driver knows you and they trust you, they will give you looks, they will look into your lens, you'll get better photos. See, a lot of the times I would take a photo, say, of Pierre Gasly coming in with his girlfriend and maybe the dog. And by the time Pierre gets back to his motorhome, maybe 4 minutes later, that picture is up on my Instagram page. So he can see the photo, and if he likes it, that's great. He will learn that, oh, if Kim takes a good picture, it'll be up quickly, it'll be positive for him. But if I was, and when I was a new photographer, no one cared about me because they didn't know me. They didn't know where my pictures were going to end up. They didn't trust me. So yes, you have to put in a long time in the sport to get the better photos. And that will mean that they look at your lens, or sometimes they'll talk to me as I'm walking backwards and they'll be smiling and happy. And for me, that's a very important part of my business.
What was the best picture that you took in your F1 photographer let's say,
Oh.
photographer career?
It's a very hard question. Remember, I take 20,000 pictures every single race. So that's 500,000 pictures per year times by 7 years. But the one that I often quote is Daniel Ricciardo coming onto the grid in Hockenheim, Germany. I was standing on the track because we're allowed to stand on the track. He's driving straight towards me. Behind is a grandstand. Lots of colour in the grandstand. Max Verstappen's also in the shot. There's water. It's wet. So the spray is coming off the tyres. And it looks like they're racing. It looks like I'm standing in the way of a car doing 200 kilometres an hour. I'm not. But that's what people think when they see that photo. So that's probably my favourite photo. And it's very hard to get that because you need rain, grid, grandstand close, car in the background, no marshals on the side of the track. A lot of things have to go right to get that shot.
So, your passion, how did your passion for making pictures arrive?
Well, I go back to that day in Abu Dhabi where I was in the garage watching Daniel, listening to him, and it was such a special experience. That's when I decided that's what I wanted to do. Look, I didn't know whether I wanted to do 1 year, one race, 10 years. But as it goes on, and I've got quite a following now on social media, and people should go to Kim Illman on Instagram or YouTube. I've just done more and more. So I now have my son, who's a bit older than you. He's 22. He works with me in the office, and he comes to 18 races a year photographing. And I have another video editor and then another couple of people back in my Perth office who do a bit of part-time work. So it's a team of people that work together to produce a crazy amount of content, both stills on Instagram, reels on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, shorts. It's just going crazy. And this year I'm doing even more.
Okay, so how did technology change your work during the years? Can we say that that it would be easier to take pictures in the 80s to the 80s? Because I know that you weren't a photographer then, but would you think that it was going to be easier taking picture in the 80s?
No, you were working with film. So every time I press the shutter now, because it's digital, I take a minimum 3 photos. And if it's a car on track, it might be 10 photos. And it's very quick. So I will get the car in the exact position I want. I couldn't do 10 shots in the 80s on film because you only had 36 shots per roll. So I would get 3.5 cars going past and have to change the roll. So you had to be a lot more careful back then. So I think you had to be a better photographer on film. So yes, technology has made my job easier. It also allows me to post pictures to the internet within minutes. And that's very important because today people have no time. They want to know what's happening and they want to know now.
I've watched your latest video on YouTube in which you said your prediction for the 2025 F1 season. I found
Yeah.
that video very good, but I was very surprised of you putting Lawson that down because I think, in my opinion, he will finish in the top 10.
Which driver?
Lawson.
Oh, yeah. Well, look, it doesn't matter what I think, Noah. What I think is insignificant. But I didn't know where to put him, so I put it. Look, I originally thought 14th, and I said, no, let's put him 12th. Who knows? He could finish first. But in the scheme of things, what I think just doesn't matter. You know, that's funny because at the moment, 72,000 people have watched what I think's going to happen, and that makes me. I'm amazed when I think that people want to see that. But I do have a couple of good videos coming up shortly where I talk about the 60 minutes before a race. What does a driver do in that hour? And it's a fascinating video because I've had a chat with a lot of trainers, and I know a certain amount that goes on, but you'll enjoy that because that's the countdown to a race start. But typically I'll do 4 videos a week once the season gets up and running. And I'm delighted that you're watching, well, you've watched at least one of them. That's great.
Thank you, Kim, for making me have this opportunity to interview you. Thank you so much. And I hope maybe when one day I will go in Australia and make pictures of F1 to meet you there.
I will see you. Now, how old are you?
I am 9 years old.
Right. What will you be doing when you are 18?
I want to be an engineer, an F1 engineer.
An engineer. But you're doing social media now and interviews. You don't want to be on TV or perhaps on the internet?
Yes, I want to be even in internet. Both.
Okay, so
Let's say
maybe you'll
both.
be an internet sensation and a motorsport engineer.
A bit like you.
Well, I know nothing about cars. See, I hope you know more about cars. You probably do than I do. I'm more interested in the people and the story and the color and the excitement of the sport.
Okay. Thank you very much for this interview.
Grazie and ciao.